Begin the current Daf, Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Mem Aleph. Begin 9 lines down at the top of the Amud, where the Gemara continues with the halacha. The next Mishnah, continuing on the halacha of shiur shenagach and regarding the monetary liability of the cases of goring. Ashir Kos Bazakazach and Chesed turned to the Chaim. Pishim turns today's Daf. Beschutz v'Chinim Bnei Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael throughout the entire world. Some of the things discussed in today's Daf are shiur shenagach es ha'adam b'meis. So regarding if an ox kills a person. He gores the person and the guy dies. So it depends. A tam is the owner is going to be part from kaifer. Doesn't have to pay the atonement money. A muid has to pay kaifer, but misam. Either way, the ox is put to death for having killed the person. Now the Gemara discusses some halachas regarding a shar niskol that it says in the pasuk, okay, saku yisaku, you have to stone the animal. What happens if shachtor la'achar shenig medinai? What happens if you didn't stone the animal? It's really supposed to be stoned to death, but you slaughtered it after the verdict was handed down. So Allah is besara asabachil bana. Even though you slaughtered the animal, the meat is forbidden to be eaten to have benefit, and even ayri the Gemara brings is asabana, you don't have benefit from it. Allah the tam is pat mechatzi kaifer. You don't say that just like tam is chayv chatzi nezik. So too that when it kills a person, it would be chayiv for half of the kaifer. So we begin the current daf. Daf Mem Aleph, we start with the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, shiur shenagach es ha'adam b'meis. So the ox gores a person and he dies. So muid misham kaifer. The muid, meaning if the ox had gored already 3 times, the owner pays the atonement money, which already brought a machlekes, is the money of the nizik, the money of the mazik. But the tam patur min kaifer. If it's from the first few times, then the owner of the animal is exempt from the kaifer. But the zev is a chayav in nisa. Either way, the ox that killed the person is put to death. Because by tam also the Torah tells us in Shemais Chaf Aleph, sakal yisakal, the animal should be stoned to death. And b'cheme ben, b'cheme bas, same thing is regarding a young boy or a young girl, the animal would be stoned to death, and there would be atonement money just like by adults. Now, what happens if nagach evere amma? What happens if a gores a slave or a maidservant? So that the Torah tells us, nice and shloshim slum, it's a set amount that the owner has to give to the owner of the slave 30 slime, whether it's worth way more, 100 mana, or whether it was only worth 1 dinner, whether it's going to be more or less, it doesn't make a difference. That's the penalty that the Torah made, is 30 slime for having killed the Eved. Now, it says the Gemara has the following basic question. If you're telling me that when an ox kills a person, the first time you execute him, how are you having a mu'id that you said when it kills a person 3 times, then it's going to be chayiv for kaifer? If the first time it gores and kills a person, you already execute him. So, says the Gemara, a few approaches. Amar Rabba says, what are we talking about over here? Is Kagoyin Shamdu L'Shleisha B'nei Adam. That we evaluate that the ox was running after people to kill them, but they ran away, they escaped. But they evaluate, had the person not ran away, it would have killed the person. So therefore, it's a mu'id for killing people, even though it didn't actually kill. Rav Ashi says, no, I'm on the love klumhu. That's evaluating had the person not ran away is not significant to make him into a sheikh hamud. Lamaisa didn't kill a person. Say, what are we talking about over here? Is kagoyin shesikin l'shleisha b'nei adam. He actually, what happened is that he mortally wounded 3 people, but he wasn't yet stoned by the first 2 because they didn't die yet. Then when he gored the 3rd time, then they all died. So then that's why he has to pay kaifer, because ultimately it did kill. But he made it to the 4th or 3rd, different eschayis, Taisa brings in Rashi or whatever, as moved the 3rd time, the 4th time. But be that as it may, that it was they only died then. So therefore, that's how you made it there, and at the same time, it's going to be a mood. Another approach, Rav Zvid Amar, he says, for example, where it killed 3 animals. And that's how it became a mood. Says the Gemara, what? A mood la behema, a mood la adam? What? If it became a mood for killing animals, it becomes mood for a person, but that's not true. It's harder, we know, to kill a person than it is to kill an animal. So if it's a mood for something easier, wouldn't necessarily make it mood for something more difficult. So Elam Rabbi Shloimy says, no. Kill 3 non-Jews. Meaning we don't execute an animal for killing a non-Jew. It's for killing a Jewish person.
There's no das by an animal, so you have to judge its nature. It doesn't differentiate.
Right. So actually, that's what the Gemara is actually going to disagree on that principle. Right now, the Gemara says, yeah, right. Since the animal doesn't differentiate, it's a mood for killing a person. Albeit, meaning our whole question was how to make it to a mood we have to execute it the first time. No, it's giving an answer now. The Gemara, I want to know, how did it make to become a mood for killing a person? The first time it gores, even as a time, you execute it. It's not alive to make it. So the Gemara says, when they killed non-Jews, there's no chi of misa for the animal. Obviously, whatever it is, you have reparations, you got to make whatever. But for killing the non-Jew is not going to be chi of misa. But it's still killed a human 3 times. But now the Gemara actually asked and said, "Mood lav dikachav mood Yisrael." You think being a mood for a non-Jew makes a mood for Yisrael? I mean, the Gemara disagrees and holds that's not the same thing. Yisrael has chai, yechida, neshama, chayes, whatever. It's under the bear. So therefore, being mood for killing a non-Jew wouldn't make it a mood for a Yisrael. So that wouldn't be a good answer how it's a mood for a Yisrael. So she says, interesting answer. It actually killed 3 people, but the first people were all treifas. Now, a treifa means to say he already had a mortal defect. He was not going to survive the year. And as taking these people from the where is it where they spend their last few months, when people that have they're going to die, they have hospice. So they're taking, and the crazy ox comes running and kills 2 of the people. So you don't kill the ox because that's called gabra ketela katal. It's a dead person that he killed already. You don't execute for killing a treifa, but it killed 3 people. So therefore, it's a muad la'adam. So the Gemara says muad la'treifa, muad la'shalom. What, you really think that also wouldn't be qualified as a regular person? You have to understand what the Gemara holds and understands what is it that makes a muad. But the Gemara is saying that no, that wouldn't be the same thing to be a muad for a regular healthy person. So Elam Rav Papa, he says, I'll tell you how it made to become a muad. Because the katal of Ark Lagma, very simple. After they testified that the animal killed a person as a tam, it fled to the swamp. The katal of Ark Lagma. And it killed, but after each incident, the shur managed to escape to the swamp and avoid death. Very simple, very technical answer, how it made it to being a muad. It was in the hideout with the gang, and he was never prosecuted. What do you mean? He's supposed to watch it. Yeah, I don't know if that's an exemption. I don't know if he had it escape to the swamp, or but Kapanim, yeah, I guess it's still his money that he has liability for. He says, don't get confused. What does that mean to say? So that the first 2 gorings, there was 2 sets of witnesses that testified that his ox killed a person. Then another pair of witnesses came and did hazama and said, "What? How could you guys say that his ox killed a person on Sunday at 2:00? That same time you were with us at the game in this other city." So they let him off the hook. Then, when the ox scored a 3rd time, and they testified, so then there was a group that came to do hazama on the ones who had done hazama. So it comes out that even the first ones who had said that his ox had gored, retroactively was revealed that they did say the truth, because those who had done hazama, others did hazama on them. So how could you say that those witnesses were with you at the game, you with us somewhere else at the same time? So therefore now you have to pay kaifer on the third or whatever it is on the fourth time, because it wasn't put to death because the Eidos were disqualified. But then after the third Negicha, when the third set of Eidim contradicted the second Eidim that they were in fact Zayman, the first Eidim were kosher, so now the Shemar becomes a Mud, because another person knows Chayav Kaifer. Again, because, but that's how it made it there, because they were Eidim Zayman originally. So the Gemara says, wait a second, that's not such a simple answer. Because Hanicha ila Yude Tura Be'inan. There's a machlekes that we brought previously on Daf Chavdalad. What is the concept of Mu'ud? Is the Mu'ud creating the Shar Mu'ud, or is it the Bailam become, they warned, which is really what the word Mu'ud is from the Eidos, that they were warned already. So the Gemara says, this makes sense if you just need to make the ox into a Shar Mu'ud. That's what the 3 days it mentions in the Torah. Shap, it makes sense, because it gored 3 gorings in 3 days. Now, even though the testimony was only validated at 1 shot, the girsa should not be bekatach, it should be bevasach, really. So it doesn't bother us, because ultimately it gored in 3 different days. But Eliyuda gavra be'inan. But if the primary concept of the 3 days is because we have to warn the owner, and we have to say, hey, your ox gored, okay, nothing, and again it gored a second day, and again he gets warned, again he gets warned. So, okay, that's it. You are now liable for Nezik Sham because you were warned already 3 days. But in this situation, Meim Amaleh, he could tell them, I didn't know that the first 2 gorings that I should protect it, because I was fooled by the Eidim Zayman who said that it didn't do anything. So why am I going to be chayiv for the Nezik Shalom on the 3rd time? So that says the Gemara, Kugin de Amri, it's where those who did the Hazama testified that the 3rd one, called Amos de Kotl Ture, whenever the ox had killed, Gabe Habakoi, you were there, you saw the gorings, and you knew the truth. So when it's retroactively revealed, it's not only Liud Tura, it's also Liud Gavra, because you knew the first time, you knew the second time, and you knew the 3rd time, and you knew the truth. There was just Hazama that got you off the hook, but now when the Zaymin, okay, now you have not only Liud Tura, but you also have Liud Gavra, because you knew about it for 3 days. You didn't just now find out about it the last second. Another approach, the Gemara brings Ravina Amar, he says that you could have that the ox was not stoned the first 2 times. For example, if the witnesses testified that b'makirin is bal hashar, they recognize the owner of the ox, but v'makirin is hashar, but they don't know which ox it is, and so you couldn't stone it to death the first few times. It was only on the 3rd time that it was revealed that it's this ox. Then you're going to stone it on the 3rd time. But we could get to a shar hamuid to be chayiv b'kaifer for the ox having gored. But the Gemara says, wait a second, how could that be? My havale, what should the owner have lemeva to do? Why are you making him liable for kaifer? But he didn't know which ox it is to watch it. So the Gemara because they could tell him, no, you have a goring ox in your cattle. You should have watched your whole cattle. You knew in here there is an animal that's dangerous, so therefore the fact that you didn't know which one is not an excuse, and that's why he's going to be chai. Now the Mishnah continued and said that mu'ud or even the tam is liable for death for having killed the person. So the Gemara brings term in the Braisa. In this same pasuk, it says mimash b'shenem, and the fact that it says a pasuk in Shemais. Sakal yisakal hashar. Meaning we're going to get into a whole conversation now, because the pasuk that talks about the animal being stoned to death, the words of the pasuk are sakal yisakal hashar. The ox shall be surely stoned. Below ya'achal should not be eaten as pesach its flesh. And the owner of the ox is clean. Now, so since we're discussing this halacha, the animal being stoned, we quote a brisa that discusses a peripheral halacha from this pasuk. It's again, it says sakal yisakal hashar, the ox shall be surely stoned. So any dish neveli, don't I know of? Obviously, it's being stoned to death. It's obviously a nevela. It's a dead animal that wasn't properly slaughtered. It's stoned. In nevela asur b'achila, we all know. Torah tells us that nevela is forbidden to be eaten. So what does the pasuk teach when it says lo yochel es pesach? Of course, you can't eat its meat. It was stoned to death. It's not kosher. Magilach HaKasav says the Bryce, the pasuk is going to teach you that if we're slaughtered after that the verdict was handed down, even though it was slaughtered, it wasn't stoned to death. Asa b'achila, it's forbidden to be eaten. And that's what the pasuk is saying. Once the ox comes to the category of being stoned, then you cannot eat its meat, even if it wasn't stoned. Now, I would only know that, okay, only eating is forbidden. But no, minayin, how do you know you can't even have any benefit, any pleasure from this animal? The pasuk ends off by saying, the owner of the ox is clean. Says, what do you see from this that you can't have any hana from the animal? It says, it's like a person that tells his friend, the guy was cleaned out. That's literally what the words are. Meaning he doesn't have any benefit. They wiped him out, that you can't have anything from this animal. So you see that the animal, once the Gemara din happens, there's no achila, no hana, even if it was slaughtered, even though it wasn't stoned to death. Now, says the Gemara, how do you know this to be? From where do you know that when the pasuk says you should not eat flesh? Like the Bryce is saying it, that's where you slaughtered after the verdict was handed down that it's forbidden to be eaten. How do you know? I can tell you that no. If you slaughtered it after the verdict was handed down, it's permitted to be eaten, the regular kosher meat that was slaughtered. Obviously, you weren't supposed to do this. The Torah says you should stone it. Before it's kosher. So what's the Torah saying you shouldn't eat its meat? That's where it was stoned to death. But then the question was, wait a second. I don't need lo yocheles b'sacheh to tell me when it was stoned to death. It's namela. It wasn't properly slaughtered. It's a tight behema. No, what lo yocheles is coming to teach you, the asar b'hanahu, coming to teach you that it's forbidden to have benefit from it. What does that mean? But it says lo yochel. What does lo yochel have to do with hana? Kedei Rabavo, like Rabavo. So Rashi explains. So what would you do with naki? I thought naki teaches you this hana. So Rashi says no. Naki would teach us a different drasha, as we're going to say on Amud Beis, either that you're not chayiv chatzi kaifer, or you're not chayiv for dumei vladis. Let's say a woman gets a man punches a pregnant woman and miscarries. That's what we'll see. We'll have something else to darshan from Balashar Naki. But I can tell you that the Isra Hana is what you're learning out from Lo Yochel Es B'Sacheh. Why? What does Bavo say? How do you see from Lo Yochel Isra Hana? Now, Amar Bavo, Amar Rebbe Lazar, he says that Kamakam Shenema Lo Yochel, Lo Yisoichel, Lo Yisoichlu. Wie ist es steht in der Teire? Man soll nicht essen. Echad is Achila, ve'echad is Hana b'mashma. Means not just the prohibition of eating, also means the prohibition of having benefit. Oh, okay. So maybe Lo Yochel Es B'Sacheh is telling you can't have any benefit from the meat.
Wherever it says in Torah you shouldn't eat it, it also means in all.
Yeah, that's what Bavo says.
In all cases.
Well, yeah, wherever it says you can't eat, means you can't have benefit. Well, yeah, anything. Now, he said, until the pasuk specifies for you. By nevela, the Torah says you shouldn't eat it. So the Torah had to go explicitly and let you know that you're allowed to have anah, where it says the Torah has to come explicitly and be matir for you to have anah by giving it to the guy, which leger benasina. You could give it to the convert, or and you could sell it to a non-Jew. But obviously, you see that that when it says leisaychlu, must mean that includes the issa no, because what's the Torah telling you that you could sell it to the non-Jew? Why would I not be able to sell it to the non-Jew? It only says you can't eat it. I'm not eating it. Oh, because leisaychlu means not just not eating, it means not having enough. So the Torah had to explicitly by nevela come and tell you, but no kens is vakayfen. No kens is given as a matana. Because if not, I would have thought you're not allowed to. So wait a second. If according to Bavo, all these things mean you can't have anah. So how do you know that when it says it's telling you this halacha, if you slaughter it, it must mean you can't eat it because or else what's the pasuk teaching me? It's nevela anyway. No, maybe doesn't mean nachila, it means isana. And that even that when you stone it to death, which is why can't you have anah from it? You're not eating it, it's available. Maybe you would think you could have anah. Maybe that's what the pasuk can tell you can't have anah. Somebody said, no, that wouldn't be a good shot. Because when did we say that you're going to learn out the Isra Na when it says in the Torah a prohibition about eating? That's That's only if you're learning out both the Isra of eating and the Isra of Ana from not to eat. Like Rashi explains. Once we're telling you that you can't eat, so then it's teaching you also from the same words of achila that you can't have ana. But you know the isra achila misaku yisakal nafka from the words of stoning it. You already know you can't eat it because that makes sense in the veila. So isa if you think to say hi lo yuchles b'sachai, that when you're trying to entertain to ask in the brisa, that when it says don't eat its meat, is no, who means a prohibition about having just only benefit, because achila I already know you can't because it was a nevela. So say don't have enough. Azok said don't eat. I verstehe that you will learn that isa no from achila because you're already telling me it's achila. So in mittevel the main tana too. But if you already know achila from somewhere else, why saying lo yochel? Say lo yahana. Uinami, even according to you, that you want to ask this question, it should write lo yochel. Just that's it. Say don't eat. Espesari lamali. What are you saying? It's meat. Meaning, I know the meat is what we're talking about. Obviously, when you're saying the words as besar, must be coming to teach me the avagav, the avdi kein basar, even though you made this animal into flesh, meaning the shachate, you made a kosher shchita. It's telling you that that's aser to eat and to have hana. Where now you had to write a lashon of achila. But don't tell me to ask on the brisa. How did the brisa? No, maybe taka if you shechted it would be kosher. You would be able to eat it.
Some other way.
Well, we were asking to use Rebbe Vahu's drasha of how to learn this pasuk of lo yocheles b'sachai to mean isra no, and to say that maybe the Bryce's teaching is not true.
To the word so what's it coming to teach you?
Yeah, in the Gemara's question that we wanted to use Rebbe Vahu, the Gemara said you'll use Naki for something else, like we'll see on Amud Beis.
He himself learned something.
No, Rebbe Vahu wasn't said in this Gemara. He's just a general teaching. No, it's not going to be superfluous. Naki will learn that Amud Beis for some other drasha. Rebbe Vahu doesn't talk about. He was never commented on this pasuk. We just use his teaching to say. He says whoever says le'yochel means asana. Oh, great. Let's use Rebbe Vahu's teaching to say the Bryce is not right. The Bryce. So who said you have a raya? Maybe it's teaching you isra na. So no, it can't be isra na. That's just a lo yahana. And even if you would say it means hana, then what do you do with words as besari? Besari must be teaching me something because there's extra words like you're saying. What is that besari? It's just a lo yochel. Besari must mean that even if you make it like flesh, meaning you make a kosher shchit, it's still saying it's asa to eat. Right, so that's what Rashi addresses, and he says that you'll see on Amud Beis other things you could learn from that. So you could learn the Issa Nah from Lo Yochel. But again, the Gemara is falling off of that. The Gemara is saying no. The Gemara has two reasons why that's not possible, and therefore the Brisa stands still correct that even if you shechted kosher before it's stoned, it's still going to be usher to eat and to have hana. Now, Mazutra asks, he says, wait a second, maybe say this that it's forbidden the animal even if you shechted. Maybe that was only as it continued to Midbeis. If you checked the rock and you slaughtered it, meaning the avdi ke'ein skila, meaning the Gemara was asking a question that should limit the teaching of the Brisa. What should limit it? Meaning we're learning out from the pasuk. It's extra words as besarai. And what does it mean, lo yoichel? If it's anyways nevela, it says, a chiddush azah, that even if you, as long as there was a gemara din, even if you shechted it, the Torah is telling you can't eat it. It's asad lachil, asad bana. Says the Gemara, maybe that was only said if you shechted with a sharp rock, and you made it like skila, because how do you do skila with stones? So if you shechted with a rock, maybe that's where we said the Torah is telling you lo yoichel es b'sachai, that it's forbidden to be eaten even though you did a kosher shchita, because it's like the hasokal, yisokal, ashur, and maybe that's where you can't eat it. Maybe if you shechted with a knife, maybe that would not apply. Maybe if you shechted with a knife, you would be able to eat it. Some of they said, no, that can't be. You think it says anywhere in the Torah that you have to shecht with a knife, that the shchita would be more permitted with a knife more than if you shecht with a rock? But actually, what's now we learn in the Brisa, and in the Mishnah in Masechet Chulin, it says, "Hasheichid b'magal yad." If someone slaughters with a hand sickle, a scythe, or bitzar with a rock, or bekana with a reed, shchitasik shecha, kasher shchita. So that therefore there would be no reason to differentiate between with a rock or with a knife, and therefore that can't be that you would want to qualify and differentiate between a rock and a knife. Now it says the Gemara, okay. Now that you're telling me that you know the prohibition of eating and having benefit of this animal, from the words of the pasuk says you cannot eat its flesh, meaning like Rabavo, where even if you shechted it, obviously says Rashi, if you stoned it to death, obviously, because even if you shechted it's also about no. But every time it says lo yochel, Rabavo said it includes esana. Oh, so wait a second. Balasha naki lamali, the question that you were asking all along. I said Amid Beis will see. So what do you do with the words naki? You had originally told me that Balasha naki teaches me the esana, that he was cleaned out, but you don't need that. Rabbi says every time it says lo yochel, it already says isser of hana. Says the Gemara, it's lanos oiroi. We needed to teach you the prohibition of having benefit from its hide, from its skin. I mean, you would have thought to say besaru doesn't know. The Torah says besarai. That's what you now have benefit. But the skin, the hide, you'd be able to have a benefit from it. That's why we needed the pasuk to say balashach naki, that the owner of the ox is cleaned out. He can't have any benefit from the shiur of his that's getting stoned to death. But now the Gemara says, but according to those Tanoim, the mapkile lahai balashar naki, that they actually use this word balashar naki l'drasha achrina for some other drasha. Could it be in lamim l'kaman, like we're going to say later on? Where do they learn out the prohibition of the hide if they can't use it from balashar naki? Says the Gemara, nafklu me es besarai. The words in the Torah are lo yochel es besarai. Don't eat its flesh, just so lo yochel besarai. What's es? So we know es is always a ribui. Es hatafel besarai, that which is secondary to the flesh. Ma'iniu oirei, that's the hide. Now says the Gemara, however, b'hai tana, the Tana that didn't learn it out from es, the Tana that learned it out from balashar naki. So why doesn't he learn it out from es? No, because es le darash. He doesn't expound any drashas from the extra word es. You don't learn out anything from the word es. It's a stylistic way of writing, but it's not an extra word to include something. Because the time, like we learn in the Braisa, that Nehemiah used to darshan essen, and then he stopped. And he said, you know what? You can't learn out anything from the word es. As we learned in the Braisa, Shimon ha-Mesaini, v'amri some say it was Nehemiah ha-Mesaini, ha-yiderish kol essen shabbatayla. He expounded every es in the Torah because the word gam, the word es, is a ribui, is adding, is inclusionary. Kivin shegia, but once he got to the word in the Torah, in Sefer Devarim, that says la'es Hashem lekechatira, that Hashem, your God, you should fear. It says es. So pirish. So he stopped. He didn't know what to include to fearing God. So he says, that's it. I can't. My whole project is out. I can't use es to darshan anymore. So I'm like Tamidim, his student said to him, Rabbi, our teacher, called Essen Shadarashna Mateilen. All the Essen, you've made it through Bereishis, Shmois, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim. And there's a sefer somewhere. I once saw someone that wrote a whole sefer on these Essen, every es, to tell you what you learn out from every es in the Torah. So you made a whole ganze set over here, and what are you going to do with this all the drashas you have? He said the famous words. Just like you receive reward for the exposition, so to receive reward for the separation. That's the famous sefer on Shulchan Aruch, the Drisha, the Prisha. I get reward for that also. So he stopped. He didn't want to darshan anything from es. And that's who is the Mando Amar, who is saying over here that how do you know that the Isra of the Oir is from Naki? Is this Shimon or Nehemiah Mesaini? Because he doesn't darshan from es. Because he says you can't be darshan anything because what do you do as Hashem lekechatira? So he's the Mando Amar. But we all know famously at Shabbat Rabbi Kiva, until Rabbi Kiva came along and he taught es Hashem lekechatira. What could you include? Hatafel to the Rebbeinu Shalom to have yira, ladabis tamid chacham, to include Talmudic scholars that just like you have fear from Hashem, moeder dabach kemoeder shemayim, and therefore you do darshan things from es, and if you could learn out from es besarai, the or which is tafel to basa.
May I ask, that includes the counting of Esav's yichus?
When it says es? Yeah, probably includes all their kindlech, all their whatever.
Each one.
Every yes is a ribuy according to that. Taisa actually brings. He says, "What do you mean? Why was he pirish this Nehemiah Masaini?" We all know the Gemara Kedushin says Ish imay vav tiro, and it says Makechatira. There's a pasuk equates Moira Av ve'im to Moira Shemayim. So Taisa says Labanichale lamidrash lokum asay yisera. They don't want to say there's an extra asay in the Torah to use the s for that. And Taisa says, what do you mean? L'rabis tamid chachamim Hashem Makechatira, but it says mipnei sevetakim. Why do you need that? You learned it out from S Hashem Makechatira from the extra S. Why do you need mipnei sevetakim? Says Taisa, no, here we're talking about Rabbi Muvik. As the Mishnah teaches Masechet Abbas, Meirabach Kamer Shemaim is your Rav. But a regular Talmud Chacham, you wouldn't know that you learned that from S, Shemakechatira. Or he says it's by a Rav Muflik, by a Gadol Adar that's like your Rav, like your Rebbe. But Stam Talmud Chacham, you wouldn't know that you have to learn that from S, Shemakechatira, from the Rabbi Talmid Chacham. So every Talmud Chacham is what's learned out from this S. Now, a different way, different drushes from this S, or from Naki, from this last words of the pasuk of Balasha Naki, the Gemara brings Tanabon in the Brisa. What do you learn out from a Balasha Naki? Like we said, there's other drushes that different Tanoim learn out from Balasha Naki, because it's hard to translate what the pasuk is saying. It says the animal should be stoned, can't eat its meat. But Balasha Naki, what does that even mean? So Rabbi Lezer, he says, and this is by the context of a shur tam, that it's also stoned to death. Naki mechatzi kaifer. It means that he's clean. The owner of the ox is clean. That he doesn't have to pay half the kaifer amount. In other words, don't say that when it kills a person, just like by damages it's chatzi nezik. So by kaifer, which a muad pays kaifer, so to the town would pay chatzi kaifer. No, pasuk telling you Balasha Naki, he's exempt. He's clean. He doesn't have to pay chatzi kaifer. That's one drush. Rabbi Kiva said to him, "What do you mean? Obviously he's pater." He says, "V'haloi." It doesn't make sense. If you would make the owner liable, who atzmai ein mishtam el magufay, where does a shur tam pay from? It pays from the body of the animal itself, not from his pocket. This animal gets stoned to death. What should he pay? It's asa bahana. The owners could tell him, bring it to court and pay and collect from it. In other words, to say like, Kiva says, how could you say Balashar Naki is exempt you from kaifer? The payment's only from the animal. The animal's already dead. And it's asabana. So that can't be the drasha. So Rebbe said to Rabbi Kiva, Kachani benecha, that's how I am in your eyes? Shedini bezeh shechayiv misa, that you think my halacha I was talking about was where the animal's chayiv misa, and of course then it's a joke, what my drush wouldn't make sense. Because of course you can't have chatzi kaiver. There's no money to collect from the animals already asabana. No, ain't dini. My drush over here that was darishing was only elikashemis as a adam. It killed a person al pi eit echad with the testimony of one witness, or pi baalim, or based on the owners, where it doesn't get stoned to death because you need two edim. But yes, I would say that he should pay the monetary damages of chatzi kaifer. That's what you need to have a pasuk for. So that says the Gemara, what? Al pi baalim? Well, how could you say that one of the cases that you would hold that he would be liable for chatzi kaifer would be if the owner admits, but that's a ma'id b'knasu. That's admitting to a penalty, which is what kaifer is, and you're pater. And just like you'll be exempt from the animal being killed, you'll be exempt also from kaifer. So why would you need a pasuk? Which Rashi explains that the Gemara could have asked also on the Eid Echad case, which are also obvious that you're pater, because what would make the liability for the kaifer monetary damage, just like nothing's making it liable for the animal being stoned. But the Gemara answers no, ksava kufr kapara. He held, Rebbe Lezer, that as we had this machlekes brought previously in Daf Mem and other places, that is kaifer a monetary liability, or it's a kapara, it's like an atonement type of a thing. He held it's a kapara. So therefore, had we not excluded from Vishpala Sharnaki, I would have said that the owner should be liable, whether with Eid Echad or based on himself, just that he should have atonement. Kapara, he needs atonement. Nothing to do with your executing court judgment. Simple that you need an atonement. The Torah is saying you don't need a kapara. So therefore, that was what Rebbe Lezer was saying. Now another version, a different brisa. Amalei Rebbe Lezer. Lezer said, "Akiva kachani benecha." That's how I am in your eyes. Shadini bezeh shechayv misa. You think my case I was talking about was with chayv misa? Then of course it doesn't make sense. Of course you can't collect any chatzik kaifer from this dead forbidden animal. No, ain't dinil b'miskav malhargis abehema. I was talking about a case where the animal intended to kill an animal, hargis adam, and it killed a person, or lemitzi b'har Yisrael, or if it tried to kill an Egyptian and it killed a Jew, or lenafalim b'har ben kayama, or attempted to kill a nafal, which is a non-viable baby, and they killed a viable child. And all these cases, the animal is going to be pater from skila, as the Mishnah teaches later on the Mendal and Aleph. But I would have thought to say that it'd be chayiv kaifer for having killed the person. That's the case that I'm talking about. Says the Gemara, and again, because you would be able to collect kaifer from the animal because the animal is not being stoned to death. So that wouldn't be a question on it. So the Gemara says, okay, hayam liberation. Which brisa was said first? These are two different brises or two different versions of what he answered him. Either it's like the first brisa that says that it was al pi eid echad or al pi bailam, or the second brisa says no, it was with two eidim, but it's where he attempted to kill someone that he's not liable for killing, and he killed someone that he is liable. So Rav Kahana Mishmei Rava Amma, he says that miskaven, meaning the second brisa, we intended for someone else, that was Amma liberation, that he said to him first. Whereas Rav Yomi Mishmei Rava Amma, he says no, Hamis, the one that he killed him based on the testimony of one aid, or al pi bailam, the first brisa, Amma liberation, is the one that he said first. Now, what's the reason for this? So, what's the pshat in the machlekes regarding which one was said first? So the Gemara says like this: that Rav Kahana Mishmei Rava Amma says miskaven Amma liberation. That the first one that he said to him was the second brisa. Like Rashi explains, the second brisa is a better proof. Where for sure for that case you need a pasuk, because the animal's not being killed, but it still killed a person. But the first brisa, if it killed, let's say through eid echad or through the bailam, that's a very small raya, because that you can refute that case, which the Gemara actually mentioned that question, that's moed b'knas being pater. And by eid echad you could also say obviously not going to be chayiv because you need two witnesses to extract money, and even by muad he should be pater. Okay, so the Gemara answered that he held kufr kapara, but that's a shvacher raya. So why would you need a pasuk by tam? So therefore, first one he said was the second brisa, which was more of a reason to say he would be chayiv. And why was that one first? Mashal etzayid, this can be compared to a hunter, a fisherman, shashayla dagam in the yam, that he was drawing out fish from the sea. As continued up in Memezim and Alf, when he first finds a big fish, shakal, he takes it. When he subsequently finds zutr, these small ones, shakal, he takes it also. So here also, even though the big raya he said first, when he found the smaller raya, which was the first price we brought, which is a little bit weaker, he said that also. Whereas Rav Yomi Mishmei Rava, he says no, Hamer Amma liberation. The first brisa was the one that he said first when he killed up pi eid echad. Why? Because Moshe L'Tzayid compared to a fisherman shashayla dagam in the yam that he's drawing out fish from the sea. Mishakeach zutri, when he first finds the small one, so shakal, he takes it. He thinks I might not find a bigger fish. When he subsequently mishakeach ravrivi, when he finds a bigger fish, and he doesn't have such a big bucket to hold them all, so shadi zutri b'shakal ravrivi, he throws out the small one and he keeps the big fish. Here also, he first told him the first brisa of when they were killed through eid echad or through the bailam. He didn't know that he has a better explanation. When he subsequently found that, so then he retracted from the first one and he ended up saying the second one because that's definitely a better brisa. So now you know when you go fishing and your bucket's not big enough, that you throw out the small one and you keep the big one. Thank you, Tony.